Let's first introduce myself. My name is Jean-François, or Jeff. I'm a second-year PhD student at Lancaster University. And what I'm going to present you today is the result of my first pilot study. So if you see any mistake or anything, please say me, because I haven't even presented it to my supervisors yet. So I can adapt a bit before. So what I'm presenting you today is called Stress and Virtual Interactions at Work. But my PhD is about well-being and virtual interactions at work. So I'm just emphasizing this because it resonates a bit with what was said this morning. So I started studying well-being, and then I said, okay, maybe there is a missing piece, and I started integrated results from the stress literature. And then I went and discussed with my supervisor, Carrie, because he has been researching for stress quite some time, and I said, why have you abandoned stress? Why do you now talk about well-being and things like this? And he just told me that he did not, because he's still studying the exact same thing, but he just changed the wordings. Because like stress is a bit frightening to some people, especially to practitioners. Talking about well-being is just talking about similar things, but in a different way. So it will be the same today. I'm talking about stress and well-being, and both positive and negative constructs. So first, I have different disciplines in my topic. So virtual interactions, it has been studied mostly by communication scholars under the term computer-mediated communications. So all those interactions that happen through a computer with email, instant messaging, phone calls, all these types of media. But the problem with the communication discipline is that they focus a lot on media characteristics, things such as synchronicity or richness, the amount of cues we can transmit with the media, and not very much on individuals. And when they focus on individuals, it just as a mean to predict usage, for example. So they said the more you like email, the more you will use email. But we also know that in the workplace, things can be different because we don't always get to choose the media we want to interact with. For organizational behavior, it's interesting, but they seem to have specific focus as well, especially on outcomes such as performance, creativity, leader-member exchange, these sort of things. Specific situations as well, such as telework and virtual teams. But we also know that everyone works virtually to some extent, and we can send instant messaging to even people in the same floor of the same open space, still interact virtually even if we are not in a virtual team. So my perspective will be more work psychology, and unfortunately, I couldn't find much research being done in this area. I found many good quotes, many good things in the final chapter, people saying we must study this, but I don't find many study in this area. So first, how I got into the person-environment fit research. Most research that has been done before tried to establish a link between supplies and stress. They tried to establish a link between an amount of emails and stress, for example. But it didn't work, or it was very mixed. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it works the opposite way, sometimes it didn't work. So clearly one piece was missing. So this is when I come across the person-environment fit theory, because I found such a nice way to bring the individual back in the equation, I would say, and study a person-environment fit. So following as well calls to understand greater fit between people and the technology as well. So I'm using a person-environment fit approach applied to stress. So mostly work that has been done by Jeffrey Edwards that we cited a bit before as well, distinguishing between supply values fit and demands ability fit. I focused on these two in my pilot study because I wanted to shoot in every direction and see if I can hit something, I would say. So I look at supply value fits mostly. Not supply needs fit, but supply values fit. So putting in perspective what people want and what they get in terms of virtual interactions, in terms of emails and other types of media, and saying that misfit will be created by, strain will be created by a misfit. So this is an empirical study. So my sample is 118 US workers. My measures, I have some measures for virtual interactions. So these are commensurate. So I'm asking for the amount of virtual interaction they have versus the amount they would like to. For different media, such as email, audio conferencing, phone calls, video conferencing, instant messaging, enterprise social networking systems, and collaborative tools. I tried to have a scale of virtual interactions as a single construct. It didn't work out because I think the media are too different. The outcomes are too different. How can we compare the outcomes of emails and the outcomes of telephone and instant messaging? It seems to be too diverse. And this is one limitation of my study because I had to use then single items to measure the different media. Some people in the communication discipline put all the media together. They do one scale with email, instant messaging, phone calls, everything together. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm exposing the reason in my paper as well, mainly because of correlation and the outcomes being too different. So bear in mind these are single items. And then stress, I'm using scales designed by my supervisor, Carrie, called Asset Tool with several dimensions of job stress and well-being as well, if you take the scale reversely. And then I'm using PANAS as well to study positive affect and negative affect. Then in terms of analytical techniques, I mostly follow guidelines from Jeffrey Edwards. So I'm using quadratic polynomial regressions instead of different scores. So this is the equation. I think you're a bit familiar with it as well. And then I plot everything on 3D graphs using surface response methodology. And I look at the significance of different coefficients to look at the line. So just to make it more concrete, I will move directly to the results, and I will explain it from there. Sorry, technology. So these were my main hypotheses. So hypothesis one, I was hypothesizing that stress would decrease as supplies of virtual interactions increase toward value. So when there is too few virtual interactions, stress will, when we move toward the fit, stress will decrease, and then increase again when we have too much virtual interactions, but more steeply. I hypothesized this because of literature focusing mostly on the second part. So many people wrote about people having too much email or too much virtual interactions, and very few studies are being done on the opposite, people having too few emails or too few virtual interactions, too few emails from home, on this kind of thing. We don't hear a lot about this kind of stories. So I supposed it was going to be like this. And second hypothesis was that stress will be at the same level for high fit and low fit as well. So people interacting a lot, for example, using emails and wanting to interact a lot. And on the opposite, people don't interacting at all using emails and wanting to the situation to be like this. I found support for only for emails first. So instant messaging, phone calls, everything did not work. I will try to explain it maybe later, but it just worked for emails. And for some dimension of stress as well. Job control stress, job relationship stress, and job condition stress, and also negative affect. But let's move on to the results. So these are the result for the email supply value fits and the negative effects. So just to explain you a bit what's going on. So here, for example, I don't know if you see, yeah? Here are the people that interact a lot using emails, but who don't want to at all, because they're on the top here on supplies, and on the bottom here on values. So these people have experienced a lot of negative effects. So they interact a lot using emails, but they don't want to. And here, similarly, we've got people that don't interact at all using emails, but who want to interact a lot using emails. And as you can see from here, they experience the same extent of negative effect. So clearly, these persons here have been overlooked in the literature because we mostly focused on people having too much email and not on people having too few emails. And you also see from here that this is the line of fit. So these are people interacting with emails the way they want. And these are the people experiencing the less negative effect. So just in terms of line, so here, V equal minus S, it's this line here. So remember my hypothesis was about the increase will be steeper at the second part. So it should have been like this. So the increase would have need to be steeper here. But we see from this curve and from the coefficients as well that this is convex. And here the tangent is flat. So this means that this, it's symmetric. It's a symmetric surface. Because if not, I would have need a tangent like this, and then it would have been like the hypothesis. So the hypothesis need to be updated a bit. Negative affect decreased as supplies increased toward values, and increased to the same extent as supplies exceeded values, because this line here, as I said, is symmetric. The second hypothesis was supported because this line here, it's flat. Although it doesn't look flat, but when you look at the statistical coefficients, there is no curvature and there is no slope. So this is basically like saying this is flat. So people here, high fit, and people here, low fit, have the same amount of negative affect. So this was the result for emails, supply value, and negative affect. It's the same for job control and for another one as well. I just want to show you a different results. So this is email, supply value fit, and relationship stress. It's quite similar here. This is convex and symmetric, so the extent is the same, but what differs is this curve. So this corresponds to this line here. And as you see from the graph and also from the coefficient, this line is curved concave downward here. So what this says is that relationship stress is higher for moderate fits than for more extreme fits. People that are here have experienced more stress with colleagues than people that are in the extreme here, people experiencing extreme fits. And this is statistically significant as well, so it's not just graphical representation. So these were for the main results I found about discussion. So first we see from this graph that it's very tricky to try to answer this topic just by looking at supplies, as has been done in literature, because clearly when you look just at supplies, this kind of graphs do not reveal. But when you look at this person-environment fit theory, then you can clearly see the different population, people having too much email, people having too few emails, and how it impacts them. So I found support for emails, as I said, but not for other media. I was a bit concerned by this. It might be that email is something more, people have stronger values about emails. They talk a lot about emails, having too much email. It has been around for a long time as well, compared to things such as enterprise social networking. Maybe some people just don't have any opinion on enterprise social networking or having used them before, this sort of things. So maybe this would be why email would be more popular and more create more distinction between people. As I said, people that have too few email are important to consider as well. Then about job control stress, this I was a bit, I found it a bit interesting as well because I consider it as an outcome. But afterwards I thought, what if having more control would lead to more fit as well? So this is something I didn't look, but maybe if you have more control in your job, you're more able to choose the media you want to interact with. For example, if you're in a leadership position and then you get to choose for your whole team that you will get to use emails or you will get to use phone calls because I'm the one deciding. So maybe job control stress would not be an outcome in this situation, but more a predictor of fit. And then relationship, this I was a bit puzzled, so if you have any any idea about this, why would stress would be more extreme when the fit is more extreme? Because I was supposing, if any, I was supposing more the opposite. So if you're more like moderate, maybe you are happy with people from different values as well. Maybe you're more inclusive if you're moderate, so actually it worked the opposite. Because the thing about communication is that it always involves several people. So the fit for one person will not be the fit for someone else. And then if you're like a phone person and you like to phone everybody, then some people might be stressed by this because they hate the phone as well. So your fit and the way you impose your fit on others might create misfits for other people as well. So for this, the relationship thing, I was a bit confused by this finding. And then finally, so limitation, as I said, the single items, and then the coverage was a bit too wide, so I had less opportunity to theorize and formulate hypotheses beforehand because I was shooting in every directions. But for future research, it would be interesting to look at virtual interactions in terms of different characteristics as well. Things such as richness, synchronicity as well, people interacting with synchronous interaction versus asynchronous. And then many other theories can be drawn. For example, person-team fit. Maybe those people who want to have more virtual interaction will try to end up in a virtual team, for example, or in a situation of telework, rather than in an open space, in a face-to-face team. Person-job fit as well, but because some companies have policy to restrict the usage of emails after working hours, for example. So if you're the type of person that like to check emails after work, maybe there is some person-organization fit going on in this as well. And also apply this to techno-stress. So this is stress created by computers in general, and especially the demand-ability fit. So I'm sure many of you have experienced this as well, when you don't have enough abilities to cope with the demands imposed by your computers or bugs and things like this, and you start getting completely mad because it's not working the way you want to. So this as well could be done. Yeah, and that's it. I just wanted to say about many practical implications of this. So we've got many debates nowadays about restriction and company policies about virtual interactions. So some companies try to ban emails after working hours. And this could be detrimental for actually person we saw before that feel they have too few emails. So whenever you impose like company policies like this, you are more likely to create misfits. So this was one important implication I thought of my research. Yeah, thank you.